I want to talk for a few minutes about money. Money. People's money. Like you, Mr. President, I've learned a few things in life. I want to mention two. Number one, money does not buy happiness. Number two, poverty does not buy a damn thing.
The federal government is sitting on billions of dollars that don't belong to them, and most Americans have no idea. Senator John Kennedy just went on the Senate floor and exposed how Washington is quietly holding onto unredeemed savings bonds that belong to the people. This isn't lost money. This is your money. And if the government owed you a tax bill, they'd find you instantly. But when they owe you, suddenly it's silence. In this video, we break down what's really happening, why Washington has no incentive to give it back, and what this means for every taxpayer in America. If you care about where your money goes, hit like, subscribe, and stay with us because this is something they don't want you paying attention to.
The senator from Louisiana.
Mr. President, I want to talk for a few minutes about money. Money. People's money. Like you, Mr. President, I've learned a few things in life. I want to mention two. Number one, money does not buy happiness. Number two, poverty does not buy a damn thing. And that's the theme of my few minutes as I talk today. This is about people's money, and it has to do with unredeemed, uncashed savings bonds. Now, Mr. President, you know what I mean when I talk about a bond. Usually when we're talking on the Senate floor, we're talking about Treasury bonds, or Treasury bills, or Treasury notes. I want to talk about a different kind of bond today. Same principle, but a different animal. It's called a savings bond. Savings bonds used to be very, very popular in America, particularly last century, particularly during World War II. They're less popular today because there's so many other ways to earn interest on your money. Though many people still believe in savings bonds, I do. It's a great way to invest your money. What am I talking about when I say a savings bond as opposed to a Treasury bond? Well, let's take the example of one particular savings bond. It's called a EE U.S. savings bond. A savings bond is just a loan to the federal government. Let's suppose I have $1,000 and I want to loan it to the federal government because the federal government will pay me interest. I can go to the federal government and say, I'm going to loan you $1,000. And the federal government would say, thank you very much. Here's your EE U.S. savings bond. And this is how it would work. The federal government would guarantee me that after 20 years, my $1,000 would double. So I would hand them meaning the government, $1,000, and 20 years from now, I would get back $2,000. And if I didn't really need my money after 20 years, I could let the government keep it, loan it to the government, if you will, for another 10 years. And they would continue paying me interest. Now, there are two things you need to note about what I just talked about, this EE savings bonds. So, number one, unlike a regular corporate bond, When I loan that $1,000 to the federal government and get back a EE US savings bond, I don't get periodic interest payments. The interest accrues and it compounds. But when I give the government $1,000, I don't get quarterly interest payments, but at the end of the 20 years, I get back $2,000. Roughly in today's market, I'm making about 2.7% a year. But it's very, very safe. If you believe in the sovereignty of the federal government, our federal government being part of the wealthiest country in all of human history, then it's a pretty safe investment. The other thing you need to note about this savings bond, in addition to the fact that they don't pay me periodic interest, I get all my interest when I get my principal back at the end of 20 years, is that at some point, in the example I just gave, after 30 years, the federal government stops paying me interest. Interest stops accruing. So if I give the federal government, loan the federal government $1,000, and after 20 years, interest is accrued. If I want to, I can redeem my savings bond, and they'll give me $2,000. Maybe I say, okay, I'll re-up another 10 years and continue to earn interest. But 30 years is the limit. After 30 years, if I don't redeem my bond, I'm loaning money to the federal government interest-free. And that would be a dumb thing to do. But not everybody redeems their bonds. A lot of people don't. More people than you would imagine. Life comes at us pretty fast. You know, you buy a savings bond, or maybe your grandparents or your parents buy you a bond when you're young, and you grow up and you get married and you have kids and you get a job, and then you change jobs and you move around the country. A lot of people forget those savings bonds. They still own the savings bonds, but they just forget to redeem them. And so the government just has an interest-free loan. Here's what I'm driving at. Right now, over in the United States Department of Treasury, there are 100 million unredeemed savings bonds. Money that belongs to the American people. And it's no longer earning interest. 100 million savings bonds. There are only 340 million people in America. So it's a little less than a third of the people in America, though I realize some may be deceased, who have one of these savings bonds where the federal government owes them money, but the money's just sitting there and the federal government's using it and they're not paying people interest. The total amount of these unredeemed savings bonds, $36.27 billion. And that $36 billion has been there a long, long time, because people have either died or they've forgotten that they have these unredeemed savings bonds. Now, this is very uncool. And a few years ago, back in 2023, I introduced a bill which actually passed. I got it passed. That said to the federal government, specifically the United States Department of Treasury, you've got to give this money back. You've got the names of people on these bonds. In many cases, you have the addresses. In a lot of cases, you have the serial numbers. Why are you just sitting on this $36 billion, these 100 million bonds? Why don't you contact people and give them their money? And they said, Kennedy, you don't understand. First of all, they said our records are a mess. Some of these bonds go back, 75 years before there were computers. The Treasury Department said to me, the records are not digitized. We'd have to comb through boxes and boxes and boxes to get names and addresses, and it's just a lot of trouble. And I said, well, I feel your pain, but you still ought to return the money to people. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce a bill, and I did, and I passed it, that says the federal government has got to return this money to the people to whom it is owed. And in that bill, I provided money for the U.S. Department of Treasury to digitize those records, to go out and hire a consultant to go through all the records and put them in a database so they can be easily searched. And the U.S. Department of Treasury has done that. And I want to thank them. Hadn't been the easiest thing I've ever done. I worked with Secretary Mnuchin first, and then Secretary Yellen, and now Secretary Bessent, and all of the good women and men who work for them, but we finally gotten it done. And here's what we're ready to do. We are ready to turn the names and addresses and serial numbers over to the treasurer of every state, in Louisiana and West Virginia and every other state. We're going to give them the names and addresses and serial numbers so they can contact people in their state and say, the federal government has your money and we want to get it back to you. Why are we doing it that way through the states instead of just telling the U.S. Department of Treasury to start calling people up? Well, because the states are very experienced. Every state has what's called an unclaimed property program. What's an unclaimed property program? Well, every state has a law that says if a business, usually it's a business, not always, but if a business has your money and it can't find you, that business can't keep it. At the end of a certain period of time, usually 3 to 4 years, that business has got to turn that money over to the state. It's called unclaimed property. And the state's got to help give it back to people. What am I talking about? Let's say a utility deposit. Happens all the time. People move into an apartment. They post a utility deposit with the electricity company. They move. They forget to get their deposit back. Apartment deposit works the same way. Tax refunds. Stocks. Maybe you own a stock and it's being held by your brokerage company and you move and you don't leave a forwarding address or the forwarding address expires. That security company that brokerage can't just keep that stock. That brokerage turns that stock over to the state treasurer of every state, and it's their job to return it to people. And let me tell you something. The states do a marvelous job. You can go to any single state right now, just Google it, and find the state's unclaimed property program. And you can go spend a few minutes. You can put in your name. You can put in your parents' name. You can put in your friend's name. You can put in the name of the town in which you were raised and find people who are owed unclaimed property. And the treasurers do a great job of getting it back. They not only have websites, but they advertise and toll-free numbers, and they just do a wonderful job of getting money back to people. When I was state treasurer in Louisiana, I was in charge of Louisiana's unclaimed property program. And I was there for 17 years. I think I returned $500 million to the people in Louisiana. I had a whole unclaimed property section, men and women who would contact people all day long. And we had a very sophisticated database. So that's why the U.S. Department of Treasury, under my legislation, is not going to give this money back itself. It's going to return or give the information to the treasurer of every state, and the treasurer of every state is going to be in charge of contacting people. We've gone through this. We've been working on it. I passed the bill in 2023, I think, but we worked on it for 2 years prior to that. But we're almost home. What now we have to do is get the state treasurers to sign an agreement with the U.S. Department of Treasury. All the state treasurers have to do is sign an agreement with the U.S. Department of Treasury to cooperate, and Treasury will send them the names, and we can start returning this money to people. And I'm going to be sending another letter out in short order to all of the state treasurers, asking them to go ahead and sign that user agreement with the Treasury Department, so we can start getting this money back to people. It's free money. And remember, there are 100 million bonds, 340 million people in America, $36 billion that is owed to the American people that the federal government has just been sitting on, that hasn't been returned. And now we're going to start doing it. If I can just get our state treasurers to turn in these user agreements. Some of them have, but others have not yet. You may not get a check for Christmas, but you'll get, if you hurry up, you can get a check in January or October or February, so you can pay some bills. The second thing I want to talk about, Mr. President, I just want to give an attaboy to a young man. He's not young anymore. That I grew up with. His name is Professor Willis Deloney. I grew up with him in Zachary, Louisiana. Professor Deloney is a remarkable talent. God has blessed him with so much talent. He's the Boyd Professor of Piano and Jazz Studies in the School of Music at LSU. He's been there since 2000, 24 years. Before that, he taught at Southeastern Louisiana University and at Delta State University. Professor Deloney, he has earned worldwide acclaim. He is one of America's leading, if not America's leading, classical jazz crossover artists. Willis has also appeared, in addition to his teaching, Willis has appeared as a soloist, a guest pianist, an arranger, a conductor with orchestras throughout the United States, Canada, China, the former Soviet Union, all of the world. An immensely talented man. And Professor Deloney, my friend of many years, as I said, I grew up with him. He was just named to the Steinway and Sons Music Teacher Hall of Fame. That's a big deal. It's a big, big deal. And I wanted to spend a few minutes, Mr. President, calling out one of Louisiana's best and brightest, Professor Willis Deloney, who grew up in little old Zachary, Louisiana, for his remarkable, remarkable achievement. With that, Mr. President, I conclude my remarks, and I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah, and I thank you for your time and attention. My work here is done, Mr. President. I was going to suggest the absence of a quorum, Mr. President, but I see the parliamentarian over there wants me to call on my good friend, the senator from Vermont. And so I yield my time to the esteemed, legendary senator from Vermont, who is what cool looks like, Senator Peter Welch.
Mr. President.
The senator.
As we wrap this up, understand what this story really represents. This isn't just about savings bonds. It's about a government that moves with lightning speed when it wants your money, but drags its feet when it owes you. Billions of dollars sitting unclaimed isn't an accident. It's a symptom of a system that benefits from silence, confusion, and inaction. John Kennedy was right to call this out, because accountability should not depend on whether a citizen knows how to navigate a maze of federal bureaucracy. If Washington can track your income, your taxes, and your spending, it can track down Americans who are owed money. The fact that it doesn't tells you everything you need to know about priorities in this town. This issue cuts straight to the heart of trust. A government that cannot be trusted to return what it owes cannot be trusted to manage trillions more. That's why stories like this matter, and that's why we cover them here. If you believe the government should return every dollar it owes the American people, make sure you like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe for more truth they won't show you.